A woman in Australia is now a combo of Darth Vader and the Terminator, thanks to some special implants. Here's an X-ray of her hands. Those circles are microchips. They allow her to unlock doors without using a key.
So they're offering, and this is a choice, they're offering a choice to the around 700 people from all sorts of different companies that work there, the choice of being chipped, which will then give them access to various of the services without, flashing an ID card or whatever you do at the moment.
Forget wearable technology. Swedish office worker Lynn Kowalaska is having it implanted under her skin. A microchip, about the size of a grain of rice, is injected into her hand. The radio frequency identification chip is made from Pyrex glass and contains an antenna and microchip with no need for batteries. While some workers may feel uneasy at the prospect of literally taking their work home with them, the designers say the chip is completely safe and secure.
I've just been chipped myself. It's not a painless process, but it doesn't last too long, not too difficult. Minor surgical procedure, which basically involves a little chip the size of, I suppose, of a grain of rice being inserted under your skin, and you can then go off and have it programmed and then do various things inside the building. Let's go and have a look. And here's Hannah Schobler, who is in charge of this whole chipping operation in this building. Now, you've been chipped yourself. Where's your chip?
Yeah, I have a chip right here, which I use to access the entire office.
So let's see if we can get into this particular.
This is how I do it.
Okay.
No need for passcodes.
And we're in.
There's my chip right there.
So you can actually see it.
It's about the size of a grain of rice, and it feels like it too. But what that tiny chip can and can't do has become the source of much concern and confusion.
I was in a grocery store, and a couple ladies said, "Hey, you're the guy with the chip in your arm, aren't you? Run across the scanner so we can see if it gets us a discount on groceries."
Sean Darks is the CEO of CityWatcher.com, a small company in Cincinnati that's the first U.S. business to use chip implants in its employees.
Tim Shank uses it to open his front door and manipulate a smartphone.
And it turned off my ringer.
Chrissy Heischman uses hers instead of a key card at work.
And it's just a little glass bead like the size of a grain of rice.
They're among a growing number of people implanting technology under their skin.
We don't want to carry devices. We want devices built into us.
Zoltan Ishvan of Mill Valley belongs to the Transhumanist Party. The movement seeks to radically improve humans through digital implants, even genetic manipulation. For now, a common procedure, implanting programmable RFID chips under the skin. But instead of a doctor's office, many are turning to tattoo and piercing shops.
We're doing the procedure start to finish just like we would do an earring, a nose ring, a belly button ring. It's just a little piece of glass.
The online company Dangerous Things sells the device and injection kit for $57. But they're not alone. A San Francisco company is developing tiny implantable digital tattoos. They'll authenticate credit cards, track your location, even collect health data. But the next big thing does present an age-old tech problem.
I have the older chip now. I need to get the upgrade.
Constantly being forced to upgrade implanted technology can mean a pain in more than just the pocketbook.
Now, Zoltan says his chip only works with Android and Samsung, and he actually has an Apple. These devices do come with some other risks, in addition to, of course, infection. Implantable tech raises some privacy and hacking concerns as well. Dangerous Things, the company that sells that chip, warns its device has not been tested for or certified by regulatory agencies.
I wrote a story that came out this week, and it was sort of an exploration of fintech. I got rid of cash for an entire month. Didn't use any physical cards, so just digital means. And throughout the experiment, I wanted to push myself and try to find what's the furthest possible extent of this future of payments. And I found a guy who is chipping people in Sweden, and I went over to Sweden and he did it.
Now, how often do you get personally rejected? I mean, your payments in your hand. I mean, Cash is pretty much universal, except when you leave the country, then a credit card works better for you. Phones are catching up. Is your hand better than the phone? Is it worse? Does it just sort of depend on what you got implanted in there?
This is we're not there yet. Basically, you get
You're not there yet.
You get rejected everywhere. There's a few places that I found that I was able to try to do this. One which is from the video you guys showed. And those are people who can accept something like Venmo, who are already kind of on the progressive end of this. But most of the time, I mean, even phone paying, you only see it in really big box retailers or really sort of niche, like expensive coffee shops.
It happens in seconds. Moms and dads, you know that feeling. Your child gets lost in a store, maybe just wanders off for a second or two. Your heart stops, though. Panic sets in, and you think the worst. It's happened to most of us, but what if you had a secret weapon, an extra layer of safety, so to speak? How far would you go to keep your children secure?
Would you be willing to microchip them? Experts tell us the technology already exists. Turns out one Bay Area mother is all for it, and she shared her story with our Melanie Michael.
Hey guys, good evening to you both. You know, chances are if you have a four-legged family member at home, it's already microchipped. And if the technology exists to save Fido in an emergency, what about microchipping your child? Before you say, no way, I would never do that, hear one mom's story.
It's the longest 2 seconds of your life, and it's absolute panic.
I want my son back.
We've seen it in movies.
This is my daughter!
Over and over again, children gone missing.
It's terrifying.
For Stephanie Rodriguez-Neely, life is busier than ever, with 4 children, including a newborn. She knows scary situations can happen in an instant, and for her, it has.
If it'll save my kid, there's no step that's too extreme.
Stephanie's teenage daughter is a special needs child, prone to wander off and trust strangers. For that very reason, Stephanie wholeheartedly welcomes microchipping a child.
If a small chip the size of a grain of rice could have prevented a tragedy, I think most parents, you know, hindsight would have said, I wish I would have done it.
But Stephanie is in the minority in her Tampa Bay moms group, where other mothers call this too sci-fi and invasive.
You're putting a battery in your kid, you're putting a chip in your kid, and where does it stop?
Turns out the technology to microchip your kids has existed since the early 90s, but hasn't really caught on.
Is it a little too science fiction for you?
Very much so.
A well-known technology expert out of Boston tells us microchipping poses little to no health risks and would act as a barcode of sorts.
Without question. It could save a life, reunite a family, find a missing Alzheimer's patient.
I always tell people, as long as you're doing what you feel is best for your child, you're not really wrong.
And guys, this is what we're talking about, the microchip. I don't know if you can see it in my hand. It's the size of a grain of rice, very, very small. And the expert that we spoke with actually tells us that barcodes were introduced in the late 1960s. And back then, people thought, this is way too invasive and too weird. And now barcodes are so commonplace that we don't even think about them anymore. The expert tells us this will happen sooner rather than later.
So the biggest benefit, I think, is convenience. It basically simplifies your life. And that's why I think people find it interesting, because you don't have to have keys, you don't have to use tags or anything else for using printers. You can do airline fares with it. You can also go to your local gym, etc. So it basically replaces a lot of things you have other communication devices for, whether it be credit cards or keys. And of course, putting things into your body is quite a big step to do. And it was even for me at first, thinking like, why would I do this? But then on the other hand, I mean, people have been implanting things in their body like pacemakers and stuff to control your heart. That's a way, way more serious thing than having a small chip that actually can communicate with devices.
The data that you could possibly get from a chip that is embedded in your body is a lot different from the data that you can get from a smartphone. So, conceptually, you could get data about your health, you could get data about your whereabouts, how often you're working, how long you're working, if you're taking toilet breaks and things like that. All of that data could conceivably be collected. So then the question is, what happens to it afterwards? What is it used for?
I'm certain that this will be the natural way to add another dimension to our everyday life. I mean, for me to be able to seamlessly interact with everything digital around me means me leaving a keychain, which, however, is a 5,000-year-old invention. It's kind of lame. And carrying money around, a wallet and plastic cards. It's obvious. I mean, it's the next step. The next natural step for electronics is to move into the body.
I want to be a part of the future. That's why. Yeah. I saw this at a fair once and got really excited because it's finally gotten to using it in movies, and now it's available for common people.
That's it.
Hopefully I can leave my keys at home and just keep this. I usually lose a lot of things like my keys and everything, so this will give me access and help me a lot more.